It was well past dusk when Luna slipped through the barbed wire fence that bordered the Mitchell family's sheep pasture, her paws sinking softly into the fresh layer of snow. At just 4 months old, the young German Shepherd pup was still testing the boundaries of her world, too big for her whelping pen, too curious to settle for bedtime by the hearth. Her thick, copper and black fur fluffed against the falling flakes as she followed the scent of pine and spruce into the dark, silent woods beyond the farm. It was the first real snowfall of winter, and a hushed magic had descended over the countryside, broad gloves of white muffling every sound except Luna's own breath and the soft padding of her paws. Deep among the trees, Luna paused, ears pricked. A faint hiccuping whimper drifted on the wind. So weak it might have been her imagination, but her nose twitched, and she pressed on. The temperature had dipped well below freezing, and each step brought a sharp sting as snow crusted around her pads. But Luna was driven by that single, urgent sound. As she rounded a spruce stub, she found him, a small boy, curled against the trunk of an ancient beech, his rosy cheeks mottled gray, arms clasped tight around himself. His knitted cap had slipped askew, revealing a few strands of dark hair plastered to his forehead with frozen breath. He lay in a shallow depression where the snow had been trampled down, perhaps by wildlife, perhaps in his own frantic attempts to stand, and now he was too exhausted to move. Luna padded forward and settled beside him, her body radiating warmth like a living hot water bottle. The boy's eyes fluttered open as she nudged his shoulder with her cold nose. He blinked, confusion rolling through his gaze. Then, as comprehension dawned, some primal logic that this sudden, gentle creature might be his salvation. He attempted to speak, but could only shiver against the cold. Luna whimpered softly and licked his trembling hand. The boy managed a small, grateful smile before he slumped back, eyes closing again. Hypothermia was setting in fast. His skin felt as cold as the dying leaves beneath the snow. Luna pressed her flank against his chest, adjusting herself so that every inch of her warm fur touched his coat. She closed her eyes against the swirl of flakes, willing her body to warm his. But instinct told her that staying still might not be enough. She stood shivered in the brutal air himself, but barked once, softly, an almost plaintive sound that echoed through the trees. When silence answered, Luna took a breath and then did the unthinkable. She gripped the hem of the boy's parka in her teeth and, with surprising strength, tugged him free of the beech's roots. He moaned as his numb limbs resisted, but Luna held firm, jostling him forward. Inch by inch, she dragged him through the snow, leaving a shallow trail behind them. The boy's hands flailed weakly but found purchase on the pup's coat, and together they moved, Luna pulling, the boy scooting, back toward the faint glow of lantern light that hovered at the forest's edge. Snow fell faster now, the wind rising in sharp gusts, but Luna did not falter. She breathed in short, eager snorts, ears flattened against her skull as she strained forward. Somewhere in the distance, a door slammed, perhaps the Mitchells securing their barn for the night. But Luna kept on, doggedly following the glimmer of warmth she had glimpsed earlier. Up ahead, through a break in the pines, she saw movement. A pair of shoulders hunched beneath a dark coat, flashlight beam dancing along the trunks. A search party was combing the woods for the missing child. Luna's tail gave a hopeful wag, and she barked again, louder, a sharp, insistent cry that cut through the wind. The man with the flashlight spun toward the sound, training the beam on the spot where the pup's brown eyes shone like embers in the snow. "Over here!" the man shouted, racing forward. Luna released the boy's coat and darted around to wag her entire body in a frantic greeting. The man knelt, scooping the small body into his arms. The boy's parka was soaked through, but Luna pressed her side against his knee, standing guard even as the man lifted the child higher. "Thank you, girl," he muttered, his voice hoarse with relief. He brushed snow from Luna's fur. You saved him." The boy stirred in the man's arms, blinking up at the pup. "Doggy?" he whispered. Luna barked again as if to say, "Yes, I'm here." The man shone his flashlight's secondary beam down a faint trail leading back toward the farm. "Come on, buddy, let's get you warm." He wrapped the child in an emergency blanket and without looking back began hastening toward the farmhouse. But Luna did not follow. She paused, head cocked, as distant shouts drifted through the trees, other searchers calling the boy's name. Then, as if recalling another rule of her canine heart, she turned and bounded deeper into the woods, away from the safety she had brought. The man watched in surprise, until he realized that Luna was heading toward a dark rise between two oaks, the wind-battered ridge where he had glimpsed another shape earlier, something that didn't belong. At the top of that rise lay a hollowed stump, and inside it was a second child, a toddler, barely 2, huddled against the cavity's damp walls. The boy on the man's shoulder had obviously wandered off to find his sister. The man called out, his flashlight beam sweeping the hollow. "Sweetie, are you there?" No answer, only the sound of gentle sobbing. He lifted the child in his arms and carefully pried the frozen fingers from a scrap of blanket. Luna barked again, and this time the man understood. He set the first boy down and made for the rise, hand on his holster for balance in the snow. He climbed the low mound, heart pounding, and peered into the stump's darkness. The toddler's face lifted, tear-streaked and pale. Luna nudged the man's coat, then licked the child's cheek. The toddler flinched but did not block the tongue. Somehow, even in his terror, he recognized Luna's goodwill. The man reached in and lifted him gently, wrapping both children in the emergency blanket. Luna settled at their feet, circling once before pressing herself between them and the cold earth. They retraced Luna's paw prints, stumbling through the deep drifts, the man calling out for his companions. When they spotted the farmhouse light again, relief flooded through them all. Neighbors rushed out, shouting for hot drinks and towels. Flames from the hearth leapt in the window, promising warmth and safety, and the children, cradled in their rescuer's arms, closed their eyes at the first taste of heat on their frozen fingers. Luna sat back on her haunches, fur matted with ice, watching the children being carried into the barn's warmth. She wagged her tail slowly, then stood and trotted back to the edge of the woods. There, she paused to lift her muzzle to the sky, unleashing a long, triumphant howl that rang across the silent fields. It was a sound more meaningful than any command. It said, "They are safe." Then, as though no time had passed, Luna slipped through the fence again and padded toward home. Her heart light, her courage proven. By morning, the Mitchells had heard the tale from every neighbor and local station. They called it the miracle of the shepherd pup. The Mitchells wrapped Luna in a warm blanket and scratched her ears, tears in their eyes. "I don't know where you went, girl," Mr. Mitchell said, "but I do know you brought them back." Luna yawned, content and proud, and settled at the hearth, the crackle of the fire echoing the beat of her puppy heart. And so the story spread. How a tiny shepherd puppy, lost in the snow, stumbled across a shivering child and refused to leave until she had dragged him to safety. How, moments later, she braved the blizzard's edge again to find his missing sister. All through that long, icy night, Luna did the unthinkable, her loyalty and fearlessness shining brighter than any lantern as she became the family's guardian. A little dog with a giant heart, whose single act of devotion would be retold every winter, for years to come. The dawn light crept gingerly over the snow-smothered fields when the Mitchell children finally roused from their ordeal. Inside the warm barn, blankets wrapped snugly around their small frames, the older brother, 8-year-old Thomas, blinked up at Luna's wagging tail and let out a shaky laugh. His little sister, 5-year-old Marisol, clutched her stuffed rabbit as Luna nosed the blanket away, gently insisting that they give her some space so she could stretch her stiff legs. Mrs. Mitchell bustled in, her eyes pink-rimmed from a night without sleep. She knelt beside the children, smoothing their tousled hair. "Oh, my sweethearts," she murmured, tears in her voice, as relief cracked through her exhaustion. "You're home." In that moment, every worry of frostbite and lost hours in the woods melted away under the simple warmth of safety and shelter. Luna wagged so hard her whole hind end wiggled, and Thomas reached down to scratch behind her ear. Over the next few days, the Mitchells and their neighbors patched together exactly what had happened. Luna's adventurous escape from the pen had seemed like puppy mischief at first, but the moment she stepped into the woods, she'd become something more, a search and rescue team of one. As word spread through the county, neighbors brought hot soup to the farmstead. Reporters snapped photos of the muddy, icicle-laden pup, and the children, still bundled in their pajamas, sat for interviews with wide-eyed grins. But amid the buzz of gratitude and local fame, the Mitchells noticed something gentle shifting in Luna. She no longer slipped out nightly to explore. Instead, she curled up by the hearth, content to watch snowflakes drift across the frosted window. When Thomas and Marisol would hurry past on their way to school, she'd spring up and trot at their heels until they were safely indoors. It was as if she understood that her wild spirit had found a purpose, and that purpose now lay close to home. A week after the rescue, the county held a small ceremony in the Mitchell pasture. A handmade plaque, emblazoned with a shepherd's silhouette and the words, "Luna, hero of Red Oak County, was mounted on a sturdy oak post at the edge of the woodline. Standing in the crisp air, Mrs. Mitchell held Marisol in one arm, Thomas in the other, and presented Luna, a bit bewildered by the crowd of neighbors and local officials, as the guest of honor. Sheriff Grant stepped forward with a ribbon and scissors, and with a ceremonious snip, the tribute was unveiled. Luna cocked her head, ears pricked, as the assembled neighbors broke into applause. For a timid moment, Luna sank backward on her haunches, then bounded forward to accept the chorus of pats and treats. Afterward, Sheriff Grant awarded Mrs. Mitchell an official Good Neighbor certificate for raising such a remarkable dog, and the Mitchell children beamed as they held Luna's leash. In the days that followed, life slowly returned to its gentle rhythms. The snow melted into slushy carpets where Luna chased sticks along the fence line. Thomas and Marisol, now reluctant to part with their brave companion, walked her every morning to the old well by the side of the road. Even the farm's flock of sheep seemed to acknowledge her heroism. When Luna padded through the pen, the ewes lifted their heads in silent salute. Yet, though the rescue had brought Luna acclaim, it also left lingering questions in the Mitchells' minds. How had the children wandered so deep into the woods? Why had neither the school bus nor their own mother realized they were missing until dusk? One evening, after the farm chores were done, Mr. Mitchell sat with Thomas and Marisol in the warm glow of the kitchen lantern. "We need to understand what happened," he said gently, stirring hot cocoa. "Not so we can be strict, but so we can keep you safe." The children exchanged glances, then Marisol nodded. "I remember," she began in a quiet voice. "We were arguing. Thomas wanted to see the baby chick hatch in the barn, and I was scared of the snow, so I ran away. Thomas chased me. Then we got lost." Thomas toyed with his mug. "I was scared too," he admitted, "but I didn't think we'd almost freeze." Mr. Mitchell wrapped an arm around each of them. "You're safe now," he said, "and we're grateful for Luna, but we're also going to take steps so this can never happen again." Over the next week, they built a simple tracking harness for Luna, a bright red vest with reflective stripes, and installed motion sensor lights around the barn. The children also agreed to carry pocket beepers on cold days, and the Mitchells reinforced the fence line so Luna couldn't slip out unnoticed. As winter loosened its grip and the calendar pages turned towards spring, the story of the shepherd puppy and the freezing children became something of a legend in the county. Yet for Luna and the Mitchell family, it was simply the day their world had been turned upside down, and then set back right by a small dog with a huge heart. On clear afternoons, you could still find Luna at the forest edge, nose in the breeze, as if recalling the thrill of the chase. But she never wandered far. When the children ventured close behind her, she'd spin around, bark once, and bound back home, her tail like a banner of joy. One pale morning, months after the rescue, Thomas and Marisol discovered a split sapling at the spot where Luna had first found them. The tiny beech tree had grown crooked under the weight of snow, but now, in spring light, its new shoots stretched bravely toward the sun. The children knelt and pressed their small hands to the rough bark. Thomas traced the split with his fingertip. "Just like Luna helped us," he said. Marisol nodded, eyes shining. "She gave us a second chance." From then on, the sapling became a living monument alongside Luna's plaque, a reminder that help can come from the most unexpected places, and that courage, once sparked, can take root and grow. And every year on the winter anniversary of their rescue, the Mitchells, joined by neighbors and local children, would gather at the oak post, tell the story of how a tiny shepherd puppy did the unthinkable, and watch as Luna, now fully grown and gray, at the muzzle, wagged her tail in humble pride. Because in Red Oak County, everyone knew. Heroes come in all sizes, but the bravest among them often wear paws instead of boots, and warm hearts instead of armor.